Hey everybody, this is Garrett with Earth and Time, a channel where we explore both Earth's history as well as human history and where the two intersect. And today, I'm doing kind of a different video. We are going to take a look at some of those things. Specifically, we're going to go visit a quarry in Pacifica, California, but we're also going to take a little time to explore the town, and I would like to share a couple things I found along the way with you there, including some amazing food as well as an amazing shop with this artist who actually does dinosaur and ancient life art that I wanted to share with you all. So with that being said, come join me today. Let's check out the town of Pacifica, California, just south of San Francisco, and explore that fantastic little town as well as the quarry there and learn a little bit about the geology along the coastline. Let's get to it. All right, my first stop from the airport is coming to one of my favorite sandwich shops. I'm actually in Pacifica, California. I'm going to work my way down Highway 1, take a look at some of the geology. We'll take a look at the San Andreas Fault, some of the sea stacks that are out here, and talk about some of the unique features in this area. But first, I need to get some food. So my first stop, of course, is a place called Dinosaurs, and they do an amazing banh mi. All right, so here's the menu. I love that it's Dinosaurs, and they have so many good things. So I'm getting the grilled pork and then getting some spring rolls. All right, I know I have the sun behind me. It's the only seat I could grab, but take a look at all this yummy goodness. Got myself a Thai iced tea. Take a look at that thing. That's a banh mi. So it's got grilled pork inside, jalapenos, pickled carrots, cucumbers. Absolutely awesome. And of course, I can never go to a place that serves banh mi without trying their spring rolls as well. And these are their chicken spring rolls. So excited. Okay, now that I've had my sandwich, I want to show you all what this amazing coastline looks like and talk a little bit about the geology. I'm going to zoom in here where we can see a little bit more of the cliffs. And there's a couple of things going on here that I want to talk about when we talk about geology. One, along here on the Pacific coast, we're just south of San Francisco. They've actually built this seawall here with these rocks to try to forego more erosion. So all these homes, this whole neighborhood in here is all at risk of tumbling down into the sea. In fact, you can see the cliffs off in the distance that are very sharp and are slowly eroding back. So as these waves are coming, they're just hammering on here. Shoreline erosion is a real serious deal here along the Pacific coast of California. One of the other things we can see way out here are what are known as haystacks, or rocks that sit out in the middle of the ocean where everything's been eroded around them for various reasons, and they're all that is surviving out there. So famous haystacks, if anybody's ever seen the Goonies movie, that's probably some of the most famous haystacks that you'll see, but you can actually see those out here in Pacifica as well. Now, for the general geologic province, we're in a really unique situation here. We're actually on the Pacific plate as I stand here on this pier. Now, what's special about that is I only have to go a handful of miles, less than 10 kilometers over that hill, and I'm actually in the North American plate. Those hills that we're looking at setting up here are set up due to the San Andreas Fault system. So we're actually going to take a look at that today as we travel along Pacific Coast Highway. We're going to actually hop over those mountains and actually go to what's known as Fault Line Park and see if we can learn a little bit more about the San Andreas Fault and see some of the areas where the 1906 rupture took place. But before I go anywhere, the sheer magnitude of these waves, say, are just intense. These waves have to be 6, 7 feet, 8 feet tall, coming and crashing down here. Absolutely spectacular. One of the other things I'll mention as I'm walking off the pier here in Pacifica is the terrain we're actually sitting in is pretty unique as well. So the rocks that make up this area are a combination of ocean rocks, old volcanoes, and actually pieces of Southern California that have gotten dragged all the way up here over the last 10 plus million years due to the San Andreas Fault zone. Pretty unique story and pretty fascinating piece of the continent here just south of San Francisco. Okay, let's work our way heading south, where we're going to work that direction and see what we can learn about the amazing geology here. Loving the murals in this town too. So you can see the ocean mural here, and it looks like a fun stop. So let's go check it out. Look, they have a really cool sketch of a trilobite and some other dinosaur skulls. Oh, and check out this artwork. This is amazing. I will put the information for this artist and for this place up for you all, so you can check out these prints. And he has one of my favorites, a Dimetrodon. And we had a conversation before how about Dimetrodons are not dinosaurs. They're actually more related to mammals than they are dinosaurs. They're actually synapsids, which led to therapsids that eventually led to the mammals. Pretty cool, right? That is an awesome picture. He's got the trilobite killer here. And fish. Cotton crustacean. $10 intervals. Really, really cool shot. Well, I have to say that was one of the best small town finds in a really long time. Pull into Pacifica, check out cotton crustacean. Super unique items. Absolutely an amazing place to stumble across. I'm so happy I stopped and walked in. I got myself a trilobite shirt and I got this Daring to Dig Adventures of Women in American Paleontology book. Looks really interesting. I'm really excited to check it out. So there's a really interesting feature right up here that's known as Sam's Castle. And this house was actually built in 1908, post the 1906 earthquake that everybody, I'm sure, learned about, that destroyed San Francisco. But it was done by a railroad tycoon. He built this house in 1908 and said it was earthquake proof. It became known as Sam's Castle, and you can see how it's got a castle design. It's based on the railroad tycoon's wife's hometown in Scotland, a castle from there. And so it has that classic architecture with the turrets on top. But it became known as Sam's Castle in 1959 when a gentleman named Sam Meza ended up buying it. And apparently they do tours there. Unfortunately, they're not open today. All right, so my next stop here in Pacifica is actually to take a look at the quarry here. And it's on this trail they call the Quarry Trail, or Quarry Running Trail. So the quarry here is really important for the greater San Francisco area. They got a lot of building material out of this quarry here. So San Francisco's, I don't know, 10, 12 miles up the road from here, the downtown portion. So they would have had to truck that material back and forth. But I want to take you all to take a look at this quarry, which is supposedly this limestone. So let's go take a look. Along the way, they have these amazing gardens. And you see Pacifica's Liberty Garden here, and this is pretty spectacular. And it looks like people have decorated along the trail with all kinds of flowers and memorials. Really, really nice. And it looks like the whole community comes out and helps chip in on making this garden possible. It's really moving seeing how they've created this, what they call Liberty Garden, a memorial garden, along the way on this trail. The other thing to point out is it was nice and sunny. If you remember when we were at the pier, I'm only about 2 or 3 miles south of the pier, and fog and mist has rolled in. One of the really unique things here in Northern California, one of the things I love is you can go from beautiful sunny day to a bit of this overcast, but I actually really like it. All right, so here's our first look at the quarry. So this is what's known as a Calera limestone, and the Calera limestone is Cretaceous in age. And so you're talking the time of the dinosaurs. The latest time of the dinosaurs is when all this limestone was laid down. And limestone, of course, is a very popular building material, both for its ability to be sculpted and because you can actually cut it into nice blocks because of how it often fractures. But that's why there is this giant quarry, which we can see in front of me, exists, as they're pulling the limestone out of here for a number of the buildings in San Francisco and the surrounding area. Now, knowing that we're still on the Pacific side of the plates here, the North American plate somewhere on the other side of those hills in the fog and cloud banks over there, that means this material could have come from a couple different places. One is it could have been brought up via strike slip faulting along the San Andreas Fault all the way from Southern California. It definitely came from somewhere south of us because we know the plate side I'm moving on now is moving northwards, right? And the other side, North American plate's moving southwards across those hills. So this came from somewhere to the south. If this is Cretaceous in age, there is the possibility that this was part of when the Farallon plate was subducting against North America before the modern day San Andreas Fault set up, that this could have been deposited somewhere in the ocean vicinity, maybe not quite as far from here, but actually I'm not too certain. So if anybody actually knows the answer to where this Calera limestone originally came from, how far south, please let me know in the comments below. It definitely has that classic limestone look to it, the gray color. In fact, you'll see it turns a little bit more white or bleach this way, and I'm wondering if that's the material they were actually chasing after. And as I come over this rise, you can really see this quarry now. Pretty neat. The geology in this part of North America is so incredibly complex. You had stuff happening during the time of the dinosaurs. You had oceans out here, and you had a bunch of island arcs slamming in to the western part of North America. You had volcanoes popping off. And then eventually, of course, you set up the San Andreas Fault zone. So many unique environments from both a faulting, what we call structural point of view, as well as the rocks themselves. So we can see limestone here, but there'll be other areas we're going to see intrusive igneous rocks that came all the way from Southern California and were dragged up here along the San Andreas Fault. Really, really cool story. All right, back to this wonderful limestone. Now, it is really beaten up. And what I mean by that is you can see it's very fractured in this area, which is no surprise with the faulting, but the fractures probably made it easier for the folks who are coming out here first working the quarry to split these in larger blocks or in blocks in general and ship up to San Francisco. Now, I was looking for some fossils. What I can tell is it looks pretty fossil poor. I did quickly read that there were microfossils found in this, and that's how they know the age. So there's some certain assemblages of microfossils that give you an idea that these would have been Cretaceous or during the latest time of the dinosaurs. Now that's really cool. So if you can see here where there's a color change, there's actually a little fracture and or probably a fault zone running right through there, and that's why you see that color change and that unique kind of weathering pattern, smooth pattern on the surface there. And that tells me there's probably a fault or at least a pretty significant fracture system running right through there. And that's what these early quarry engineers would have been chasing after, because if they can get into these cracks, they can break these rocks out with a little bit less energy. Now, you will potentially break them up in a way that you don't want. So that is a risk here. Now, the other thing they could have used this for, some kind of gravel for various things, for landscaping, because it is, at least where they're at today, where they stopped today with the quarrying, is pretty beaten up, fractured. Wouldn't be very well put together. The flowers are out in full bloom right now too. These are gorgeous. Is this really smooth surface right there. So it looks like, I wonder if that's where they're excavating part of this, or it may have also been part of another fracture network. So a lot of times these fracture networks will work in conjugate, so 90 degrees to one another. And so this would have been conjugate to that other fracture system I saw going in that direction. So maybe they were working those to get out the type of limestone they wanted until they eventually ran out of the really nice limestone. The other thing I'll point out is we can see how these are all tilted up on end right here. So when limestone's deposited, it's deposited flat like my fingers. But now these are rotated almost 90 degrees, right? 80, 85 degrees. Pretty amazing, which tells me they had to be caught up in some kind of faulting. And of course, we know over those hills and through the woods, no, over those hills on the other side here is where the San Andreas Fault is. So it's no surprise that we see these beds are all on end or almost 90 degrees. Now, what I don't know is what the rocks are on top. There are both what they call a gray wacky, which is a lightly metamorphosed sediment, and there's also basalts that came out here later on, and I'm not sure which those are. I'm not going to be able to get up there to take a look. But if anybody knows, please chime in down below if you've hiked this trail and know about the geology, and please share with us. This was just off the cuff, wanted to come check this out and quickly looked up what information I could. All right, so I did a little bit more digging. According to the geologic map I saw, says it's known as a Franciscan complex. So these are a bunch of ocean volcanoes and volcanics that got scraped on top of this stuff through faulting and through some thrust faults that were going on. And so this is known as the Franciscan melange or Franciscan unit. In fact, what's interesting is they've dated this to the Jurassic to the Cretaceous. So that may actually be older rock over younger rock, or something that may be slightly synchronous, because they have ages from 200 million years all the way to the end of the dinosaurs, 65 million years, whereas the stuff down below was closer to the 100 to 80. Pretty cool spot to come check out. I mean, I left the airport about 2 hours ago, grabbed those sandwiches, went to the pier, and then came down here and found these amazing rock outcrops to share with you all. Thank you everybody for joining me today to check out Pacifica, a little bit of a different adventure type than I usually do. Usually I don't do things like showing food, but I wanted to share the places here in Pacifica. Pacifica is really near and dear to my heart, and it's somewhere that I have visited quite often. So with that being said, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel if you enjoy this kind of content. Also, if you enjoy this video specifically, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Are you familiar with this part of California or this part of the United States? If you haven't been here, it's worth coming to visit. Please let me know. I will see you all in the next adventure. Bye for now, and take care.